This is a guest essay written by Nahum Kaplan of Moral Clarity.
The so-called international community has swallowed so many of its own lies about Israel being a white colonialist enterprise that they fail to appreciate that Jews are a Middle Eastern people, not quintessential Westerners. This misconception, along with old-fashioned Jew hatred, is why Western leaders pressure Israel to prosecute its wars the way Western states claim they would. This is a bad idea. Israel has an exemplary record of winning wars. By contrast, since World War II, the West's approach has been to invade foreign lands, get stuck in a quagmire, run out of money, lose all political capital, retreat in shame, and then rinse and repeat in a few years when everyone has forgotten that it did not work the last time. This is the playbook that the West has pressured Israel to follow in Gaza. Had Israel gone in harder and faster, and I acknowledge the IDF has its reasons for doing it the way it has, and sought a devastating and decisive victory, it would have been better for all parties, except Hamas. Israel bears some responsibility. Jewish emancipation and nationalist expression will not be complete as long as Israel aspires to play by anyone's rulebook or anyone's values other than its own. That is the point of Jews living in a Jewish state. Israel must not go down the West's path of meekly abandoning its values. Unlike post-colonial nation-states, which are modern constructs that do not reflect how the region's people think, Israel needs to act like what it is: a heavily armed ethno-religious minority tribe surrounded by other tribal cultures. Arab cultures are likewise tribal. In the Middle East, strength equals respect. A tribe that looks after its own, fights hard for its people's security and interests, and stands its ground at all costs, is what garners respect from other tribal groups that think similarly. Respect is what brings peace. Egypt and Jordan signed peace treaties with Israel when they begrudgingly accepted that Israel was strong and deeply committed to defeating them in war as necessary. By contrast, Israel's withdrawal from Lebanon, Gaza, and parts of Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, have been met with further aggression. Europe's surrender at every opportunity approach and America's appease at every chance approach are always guaranteed to fail in the Middle East. Besides the Israel-Palestinian conflict being more about religion than territory, specifically Palestinians' refusal to live with Jews, the West's obsession with a two-state solution shows its lack of understanding. It rests on the odd belief that transient modern political structures are the solution in a region when people think in centuries. While Western leaders cannot think beyond the next election, the Muslim Brotherhood, the crazed Islamist Egyptian terror group that spawned Hamas, has a 100-year plan to bring down the West. A Palestinian state is just a stepping stone on that path. It changes nothing. This 100-year plan looks to be progressing nicely, given the Islamist hijacking of Western universities, Western youth, and the surreal alliance they have formed with the now mainstream far left. Jews, however, fully grasp the long game. Israelites, Judeans, and Israelis have been building, defending, losing, and regaining temples in their homeland for millennia. A reason that the West cannot accept the Middle East's tribal nature is because they look down on it. They see tribalism as something primitive. This reeks of colonial arrogance. It is the year 5784 in the Hebrew calendar. The Jews have 3,700 years of civilized history. Western civilization, just out of the gates, is already falling off a precipice. Islamist mobs maraud European streets unopposed, calling for Jewish blood and death to the West. The arrogance of Westerners thinking they know how to survive in a region better than the indigenous people is staggering. The Jews are still around. That cannot be said of the ancient Egyptians, the Philistines, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Ottomans, the Crusaders, the Nazis, the British Empire, and the Soviets. I am sure I have missed quite a few. The Islamic Republic of Iran and its proxies will go the same way. The West's slow-motion capitulation to Islamism suggests it will be on that list too, mainly due to unprincipled cowardice and denialism. It takes a lot of chutzpah to tell the Jews, with our record, how we should approach surviving in a deranged neighborhood of despots, theocrats, and warlords. Israel would have to be meshuga, Hebrew for crazy, to listen to the advice or instruction from nations that have no understanding of the region or its peoples, and certainly do not have Israel's best interests at heart. Palestinians are tribal too, whereas Arabian power was, and still is, divided among powerful houses such as Saud and Hashemite. Modern Palestinians operate the same way. Fatah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and others are tribes currently not fighting each other only because they are fighting Israel. This is one reason the so-called two-state solution is anything but obvious. Rather than looking down on the region's tribalism, Western leaders should seek to understand it. Consider Israel's settlers in Judea and Samaria, and formerly in Gaza. They do not see themselves as encroaching on Arab land. They see themselves as Jews living on Jewish ancestral land and having to fend off violence as their ancestors have done for 3.5 millennia. Understanding this tribalism rather than denying it is necessary to understand what the foundations of peace might look like. Jews living proudly on Jewish ancestral land and Arabs living proudly on Arab ancestral land is the principle that the world should recognize and help them achieve. This is what underpins the Abraham Accords, in which the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Morocco normalized relations with Israel in 2020. The Islamic Republic of Iran used its Palestinian proxy terror groups Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad to attack Israel in order to derail Israel-Saudi normalization as the next phase of these accords. So far, the Abraham Accords have been resilient enough to get through the Israel-Hamas war, and that is because the various tribes see them as being in their interests. A big part of that interest is countering Iran, a Shia tribe, for dominance in the Middle East. The West's belief that it could appease Iran has been a historic failure. It has allowed the Islamic Republic to be on the brink of developing nuclear weapons. The Biden administration, currently negotiating a defense pact with Saudi Arabia, adjoined by Israeli-Saudi normalization, is a desperate attempt to play catch-up in a game that Biden's former boss, Barack Obama, effectively invented. Any constitutional or treaty arrangement between Israel and the Palestinians, such as the fabled two-state solution, that does not give any party what they want, is unlikely to succeed. Polls show that most Israelis and Palestinians do not want two states. Polling from the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research shows that 64% of Palestinians oppose it, while a Pew Research Center survey shows that only 17% of Israelis think it can work peacefully. The West sees neither side getting what it wants as a compromise. In the Middle East, that is failing your tribe. The West's approach of making peace as a goal to which everyone should aspire shows a lack of understanding. The goal should not be peace for peace's sake. The endgame is for Jews and Arabs to be strong, living side by side in their respective homelands, and working together for the Abrahamic region to thrive. This is why the Abraham Accords were not just a big step forward, but illustrative of what the way forward should look like. Strong Jewish and Arab states building a better future and countering Iranian militarism. Hapless and corrupt international bodies such as the United Nations and its attendant kangaroo courts will never succeed in imposing peace on tribes that are pursuing their own interests. For any solution to work, it must be clear to Israelis and Palestinians that the solution is to their tribe's benefit. The international community and the West require a mindset shift and maybe a few anthropology lessons. Looking at a problem correctly is essential to solving it. There is little reason to be optimistic. The West, true to form, still does not get it. It persists in recycling and peddling ideas that have failed repeatedly and will fail again. Israel must keep fighting as the Jewish tribe, as it has done for millennia, because Jews have learned a few things while outlasting history's greatest empires. Hopefully, the world will not take too long to catch up.